Every billionaire you admire has a secret they will never admit on camera. It is not their work ethic. It is not their genius. It is a set of psychological weapons so powerful, so deeply hidden, that most people never even realize they are being used against them. The wealthy don't play the same game as you, and they never did. You think money flows to the hardest workers? Look around. The hardest working people you know are barely surviving. Money flows to those who understand the dark mechanics of human psychology, who know how to bend perception, manufacture desire, and exploit the invisible patterns running in your brain right now. Dark psychology of wealth. In the next 14 minutes, I am going to expose the psychological playbook behind every major fortune ever built. The manipulation tactics, the cognitive exploits, the mental frameworks that separate the ultra-wealthy from everyone else. And here is what makes this uncomfortable. Once you see these patterns, you will recognize them everywhere. In every advertisement, every negotiation, every deal you have ever lost. As Robert Greene warned us, the world is dangerous and enemies are everywhere. Everyone has to protect themselves. So let us pull back the curtain on the dark psychology behind every fortune. The scarcity weapon. The first weapon in the wealth arsenal is manufactured scarcity, and it is devastatingly effective. Have you ever wondered why diamonds cost a fortune when they are actually one of the most common gemstones on Earth? De Beers figured out in the 1930s that if you control supply and manufacture the illusion of rarity, you control price. The value of a thing is not in the thing itself, but in our desire for it. This is not just about diamonds. Every fortune builder understands this principle at a cellular level. They create artificial bottlenecks, limited editions, exclusive access, waitlists for products that sit in warehouses. Scarcity creates desire. Think about your own behavior. When someone tells you there are only 3 spots left, your pulse quickens. When a product is sold out, you suddenly want it more than ever. This is called reactance theory. Psychologist Jack Brame proved that when our freedom to have something is threatened, our desire for it skyrockets. The wealthy do not just understand this, they weaponize it. They make you feel like you are about to lose something you never even wanted in the first place. And you fall for it every single time. But this principle runs deeper than marketing. It is the foundation of something even more disturbing. Anchoring the mind. Every fortune is built on a cognitive exploit called anchoring. And once you understand it, you will see it in every transaction you have ever made. Here is how it works. Walk into a luxury store and the first thing you see is a $40,000 handbag. You are not going to buy it, they know that. But now every $2,000 bag feels like a bargain. Your brain just got anchored. The first number you see becomes the ruler by which everything else is measured. Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman spent decades proving that humans cannot make rational decisions once an anchor is planted in their minds. In one study, spinning a random wheel of numbers before asking people to estimate African countries in the United Nations completely changed their answers. A random number altered their judgment of reality. Now multiply this across billions of transactions daily. Every price tag, every salary negotiation, every real estate listing is an anchor designed to manipulate your perception of value. If this is making you see your finances differently, hit like and subscribe because we are just scratching the surface. The next tactic might be the one that has been draining your wallet for years. And speaking of draining, the next weapon goes far deeper than your wallet. It targets your identity. Identity hijacking. The most profitable psychological weapon ever invented is identity hijacking, and you are a victim of it right now. Every major fortune understands that people do not buy products, they buy identities. Apple does not sell phones, they sell the identity of a creative, sophisticated individual. Nike does not sell shoes. They sell the identity of an athlete, a winner. You buy who you want to be. Psychologist Henry Tajfel proved through his minimal group experiments that humans will sacrifice logic, money, and even self-interest just to maintain group identity. The wealthy exploit this mercilessly. They create tribes around their brands, communities around their products, movements around their ideas. People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. Think about your own spending. How much money have you spent not because you needed something, but because owning it made you feel like a certain type of person? That car, those clothes, that subscription. Identity. You were not making a purchase. You were making a statement about who you are, and someone got very, very rich because of it. But this goes even darker when combined with the next weapon, one that operates completely below your conscious awareness. The dopamine trap. Every fortune built in the last 2 decades runs on one molecule, Dopamine. And the people who understand it are extracting billions from your brain chemistry every single day. Your phone is not a tool, it is a dopamine delivery device designed to keep you addicted. Stanford professor B.J. Fogg created what he called the Fogg behavior model, proving that behavior happens when motivation, ability, and a trigger converge at the same moment. Silicon Valley took this research and turned it into the most profitable addiction engine in human history: variable reward schedules. The same mechanism that makes slot machines the most profitable devices ever created. Pull the lever, maybe you win, maybe you do not. Refresh your feed, maybe there is something exciting, maybe there is not. Your brain cannot resist the uncertainty, and they know it. Nur Ile documented this in his book Hooked, where he mapped the exact cycle tech companies used to create habitual users. Trigger, action, variable reward, investment. Every notification, every like, every red dot on your screen is engineered by people who studied neuroscience specifically to exploit your dopamine system. The average person checks their phone 96 times a day. That is 96 dopamine hits someone is monetizing. But wait, because the next weapon does not just take your attention. It rewires how you think entirely. Framing reality. The wealthy do not change reality. They change the frame around it. And this single skill has built more fortunes than any product ever created. Psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman proved something terrifying. Present the same information in two different frames, and people will make completely opposite decisions. In their famous study, when told a treatment saves 200 out of 600 people, most chose it. When told the same treatment lets 400 people die, most rejected it. Same outcome, different frame, different decision. Same facts, different frame. Every fortune builder is a master framer. They do not sell expenses, they sell investments. They do not present costs, they present value. They do not show you what you are losing, they show you what you are gaining. Whoever controls the frame controls the decision. Watch any billionaire negotiation. They never argue about the terms. They reframe the entire conversation so the terms do not matter. They make you negotiate within their frame where every outcome benefits them. As the great negotiator Chris Voss put it, he who has learned to disagree without being disagreeable has discovered the most valuable secret of negotiation. Your financial life is being framed by others right now. Subscription services frame recurring charges as monthly, not annual, because $30 sounds better than $360. This brings us to something even more insidious, a weapon that turns your own psychology against you. Loss aversion game. Here is a number that should terrify you. The pain of losing $100 is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining $100. This is loss aversion, and it is the invisible engine behind massive fortunes. Twice, Kahneman and Tversky proved this in their prospect theory, which literally rewrote economics. Humans are not rational agents maximizing gain. We are terrified animals desperately avoiding loss. And the wealthy exploit this with surgical precision. Every fortune is built on someone else's fear of losing what they already have. Think about insurance. You are paying money every month to avoid a loss that statistically will never happen. That is loss aversion being monetized. Think about free trials. Companies give you something for free knowing that after 14 days, the pain of losing it will override the logic of canceling. You keep paying not because the service is worth it, but because losing it feels worse than the money. Fear of loss drives profit. Warren Buffett understood this better than anyone, as he famously advised. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. He was not talking about his strategy. He was describing human nature. But this leads us to something even more disturbing, a weapon that does not just exploit your fear. It manufactures it. Social proof engine. In 1968, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted an experiment on a busy New York sidewalk. One person stood staring up at a building. 4% of passers-by stopped to look, but when 5 people stared up, 18% stopped. When 15 people stared up, 40% of the entire street stopped and looked at absolutely nothing. We are wired to follow the crowd, even when the crowd is following nothing. This is social proof, and it is the dark engine behind every fortune built on scale. Robert Cialdini identified it as one of the 6 weapons of influence, and since then, every industry has weaponized it beyond recognition. Bestseller lists create bestsellers, not the other way around. Reviews, testimonials, follower counts, celebrity endorsements, long lines outside stores. None of these tell you about quality. They tell your primitive brain that the tribe approves, and your brain screams follow them. Amazon understood this early. They made reviews the centerpiece of every purchase decision, not because reviews are accurate, but because social proof converts browsers into buyers more effectively than any sales pitch ever could. One person becomes a crowd, becomes a fortune. And speaking of crowds, the next weapon turns individual psychology into mass manipulation. Reciprocity debt. In 1974, sociologist Philip Kuntz sent Christmas cards to 600 complete strangers. He received 200 responses. People who had never met him, never heard his name, felt psychologically compelled to reciprocate a gesture from a total stranger. Free gift, hidden debt. This is the reciprocity principle, and it has built more fortunes than any business model in history. When someone gives you something, your brain activates a deep, almost primal obligation to give something back, and the wealthy have turned this neurological response into a money printing machine. Free samples at grocery stores increase sales by up to 500%, not because the food is good, but because your brain now owes them a purchase. Free content online is not free. It is an investment in your psychological debt. Every free ebook, every free webinar, every free trial is creating an invisible ledger in your mind that says I owe them something. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Every gift you receive from a corporation is a psychological invoice you will eventually pay. The Hare Krishna movement discovered this accidentally in the 60s. They started giving flowers to people in airports before asking for donations. Their revenue exploded, not because people wanted to donate, but because they could not walk away from the debt of receiving a gift. But this leads us to the most terrifying weapon of all, the one that operates on a timeline you cannot even perceive. Sunk cost prison. You are sitting in a movie theater. 30 minutes in, you realize the film is terrible, but you paid $15, so you stay. You just lost 2 more hours of your life because of a psychological prison called the sunk cost fallacy. Now multiply this across your entire financial life. Trapped. The sunk cost fallacy is the reason people stay in bad investments, bad relationships, bad careers, and bad subscriptions. Your brain cannot accept that the money already spent is gone, so it throws more money, more time, more energy into the fire trying to justify what it already lost. 1. You keep a gym membership you never use. 2. You finish books you hate because you bought them. 3. You hold losing stocks hoping they recover. 4. You stay in careers you despise because of your degree. The wealthy understand this intimately not because they avoid it, but because they exploit it in others. Casinos are the perfect sunk cost machine. You lose $50 and your brain says you need to win it back. 4 hours later, you have lost 500. Video games use this with virtual currencies and battle passes. You have already invested so much time, quitting feels like wasting it all. The cost of a thing is the amount of life you exchange for it. And this connects to the final, and perhaps darkest weapon of them all, the dark mirror. Every weapon I have described today has one thing in common. They all exploit patterns that already exist inside your mind, the scarcity that makes you panic, the anchoring that distorts your judgment, the identity you desperately cling to, the dopamine you helplessly chase, the frames you never question, the losses you cannot accept, the crowds you blindly follow, the debts you feel from gifts, the costs you refuse to release. Your mind is the weapon. The dark psychology behind every fortune is not some external force. It is a mirror. It reflects your own cognitive architecture back at you, and the wealthy are simply the ones who learn to read the reflection. The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what other people think. But here is where this gets redemptive. Every weapon can be reversed. Understanding scarcity means you stop panic buying. Understanding anchoring means you set your own anchors in negotiations. Understanding identity hijacking means you buy for function, not for image. Understanding dopamine means you design your own reward systems instead of being designed by someone else. The same psychology that builds fortunes can set you free from them. The question is not whether these weapons will be used. They will. Every single day for the rest of your life. The only question is whether you will be the one wielding them or the one being wielded. You have just seen the psychological playbook that operates behind every fortune, every empire, every financial dynasty ever built. 10 weapons, hiding in plain sight, running in the background of every transaction, every advertisement, every negotiation you will ever have. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But knowledge is not just power. Knowledge is protection. Now that you can see the strings, nobody can pull them without your permission. You can choose to use these principles ethically to build wealth, or you can simply use them as a shield to protect yourself from those who would exploit your psychology for profit. Either way, you are no longer blind. See the strings cut free. If you made it this far, comment dark mirror if you are ready to stop being a psychological target and start being the one who sees the game for what it really is. Your mind is either programmed for wealth or poverty. Now you know how to reprogram it. If this exposed something you cannot unsee, hit subscribe. The next video goes even deeper.